मेरा अभी ना खोलो, मेरा अभी कैमरा नहीं खोलिए, अभी तो जब स्टार्ट होगा तो I am a cloud, I am the blue sky,
I am a bird spreading out its wings.
I am a flower, I am the sunshine.
I am the earth receiving a seed.
and I am free when my heart is open.
Yes, I am free when my mind is clear.
Oh dear brother, oh dear sister,
Let's walk together mindfully.
And I am free when my heart is open.
Yes, I am free when my mind is clear.
oh dear brother, oh dear sister.
Let's walk together joyfully.
gratitude, you have watered seeds of love in me. In gratitude.
In gratitude, I will water seeds of love in someone new.
I know you're there for me, and I am so happy.
In gratitude, you have watered seeds of love in me. In gratitude.
In gratitude, I will water seeds of love in someone new.
And when you suffer some, please call and I will come.
In gratitude, you have watered seeds of love in me. In gratitude.
In gratitude, I will water seeds of love in someone new.
I know you're there for me, and I am so happy.
In gratitude, you have watered seeds of love in me. In gratitude.
In gratitude, I will water seeds of love in someone new.
And when you suffer some, please call and I will come.
So thank you, dear friends. Thank you, the Amiga choir. That's Amu, Mala, Indra, Gitu, and Ahimsa. And it's wonderful to hear these songs of practice developed in Plum Village. And welcome to everyone else who's been joined us for this evening of mindfulness with the Ahimsa Trust. My name is Shantam, and I'm one of the volunteers of Ahimsa. And we thought we will start today with meditation practice and then hear some reflections on the question that was put out about what change have you witnessed in your life this year and that you wish to continue. This is a question that a sister sent to me, Sister Lindsay, and she asked me to reflect on it. I thought it's a nice thing to ask the community to do, all of us who are joining. And then we might have a few songs to end again. So we'll start with this meditation. And this is a time, as all of us know, it's been a tough year for many of us. It's been a time of the pandemic, which has forced us in many ways into this space of solitude or aloneness. And these Saturday meditations, and in some cases everyday meditations we've been doing, has brought community together. And it's very important, I think, as for our sustenance to have a Sangha community to practice together. And for people like us who have been meditating for some time, we knew a little bit of what to do at this time. At least we were used to this practice. But for many people, it's been new to how to meditate, what to do. So I think I'll just give a little guidance on this practice. And today, I might give a practice which I'm going to share a practice which starts by really being aware and acknowledging the sort of poisons, in a way, which we have present in us. It's really to do with mental health. And the second is to see how we're watering those poisons in ourselves. And the third part is really to, as a determination to, that we don't want to keep watering those seeds of the poisons in our mind, and in whatever way, whether it's films or conversations or books we're reading. Just a reflection like that as we meditate. And then we can move to the more positive sides of what we want to continue to. So initially, it's always good, as in the song, that when we suffer, when we have these negative emotions, we support each other, but we also, of course, see ourselves as our first teacher, how to handle these things. And we've been sharing about how to handle our strong emotions over the many weeks. So let's start with the guided practice. I will start with the sharing a little bit about just sitting in breath awareness and body, and then move to the mental health issue. So please find a comfortable position. If you're sitting on a cushion or a chair, just feel that sense of groundedness, the sense of earthedness. And be aware of your posture, straightening the posture a little bit if you're feeling you're slouching. Just the natural curvature of the spine, up the back, into the neck, into the head. Just sitting in a sense of dignity and alertness. You can imagine a string holding the top of your head from the sky, and feeling your body is present between earth and sky in this very moment. And then relaxing the muscles of the face, the neck, the shoulders. If you feel like rolling back your shoulders a little, if you feel they're tight, your arms, your hands. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you feel more comfortable with them open, that's fine. Just sensing a sense of ease in the body. Your hands can be in your lap, on your knees. And being aware of the legs, the hips, the feet. Relaxing the muscles. And becoming aware of your chest, your abdomen. And feeling the involuntary movement of the chest and the abdomen with each in-breath and each out-breath. Being aware of the rise and fall of the abdomen. And feeling the whole length of the breath. Not trying to control it. Just bringing awareness to the in-breath and the out-breath. This breath of life, sustaining us. And we can offer that smile, that half smile of awareness to ourselves, to our breath, to to our body, alive and well. And now bringing in awareness to my mental health as I breathe in, and smiling to my state of mental health as I breathe out. Aware of mental health, smiling. Aware of my mental health, I breathe in, smiling to the state of my mental health, I breathe out. Aware of mental health, smiling. Seeing poisons such as anger, jealousy, suspicion in my consciousness, I breathe in, knowing that these poisons are harming me and those around me, I breathe out. Poisons in consciousness, harmful to self and others. Seeing poisons such as anger, jealousy, suspicion in my consciousness, I breathe in. Knowing these poisons are harming me and those around me, I breathe out. Poisons in consciousness, harmful to self and others. Seeing poisons such as fear, anxiety, hatred in my consciousness, I breathe in. Knowing these poisons are harming me and those around me, I breathe out. poisons in consciousness, harmful to self and others. Seeing poisons such as fear, anxiety, hatred in my consciousness, I breathe in. Knowing these poisons are harming me and those around me, I breathe out. Poisons in consciousness, harmful to self and others. And seeing poisons such as violence, arrogance, intolerance, prejudices in my consciousness, I breathe in. And knowing that these poisons are harming me and those around me, I breathe out. Poisons in consciousness, harmful to self and others. Seeing poisons such as violence, arrogance, intolerance, and prejudice in my consciousness, I breathe in. Knowing these poisons are harmful to me and to those around me, I breathe out. Poisons in consciousness, harmful to self and others. So now that we are aware of the poisons within us, within our mental states, now we see how watering them. Seeing myself watering these poisonous seeds, and allowing them to be watered every day, I breathe in. Knowing that to continue to live like this is to add suffering every day, I breathe out. Being aware how these poisons are being watered every day and how they're adding suffering every day. Seeing myself watering these poisonous seeds and allowing them to be watered every day, I breathe in. Knowing that to continue to live like this is to add to the suffering every day, I breathe out. Poisons watered every day, adding suffering every day. And now practice not to continue to water these seeds. Seeing myself determined not to water these seeds anymore, I breathe in. Determined to do things like breathing, smiling, walking mindfully, and no longer do things like judging, blaming, comparing. In order to transform the poisons, I breathe out. Determined to transform, acting. Seeing myself determined not to water these seeds anymore, I breathe in. Determined to do things like breathing, smiling, and walking mindfully, and no longer to do things like judging, blaming, comparing. In order to weaken and transform the poisons, I breathe out. Determined to transform, acting. You may want to massage your face, eyes, legs. So this is a sort of practice that we can do where we look at our own mental states and see if there are particular mental states or what we call poisons that we don't want to keep watering and feeding. And maybe sometimes we can write that down on a piece of paper, what we want to are determined not to continue. In the vein of this transitioning of this year from 2020 to 2021, we can make those determinations. But also we can make a determination to continue things that we found positive in this year. So I feel that when we transition from one year to another, it's not just a transition of time. It's very much based on our acting, on our action. It's not just otherwise, of course, 2020 will just flow into 2021. What we do here now is going to continue into the next year. And it's how we act in the present moment, which will actually determine to some degree what will happen in the next year or the next moment. So it's an important practice to do regularly to see where we want to transform and how we want to transform. And it's these dates or year dates that give us a sort of chance to pause and look at our own seeds, which we want to cultivate and those we want to not water. So we asked a couple of friends in the core community of Ahimsa to share on their view of what this question was. So what change have you witnessed in your life in this year, this completely unprecedented year in many, many ways? and that you want to that you wish to continue. So something that I was saying is things you don't want to continue, but I think it's also positive to look at what you want to continue in this, what we've learned from this pandemic here. So I wanted to ask Sheila Reddy. She's a writer, author, journalist from Outlook earlier, to share. So I'll invite one sound of the bell and then we can hear from Sheila.
Hello, friends. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. When Geetu asked me to share on this question of what are the changes I want to take forward, it seemed to me that there was almost nothing I wanted to leave behind, because all the changes that happened in these last 9 months especially seemed to me very precious. And in fact, my feeling was a little bit like, emerging from a retreat, and you're full of what you want to take back home from the retreat. And you don't want to lose anything, and you're determined to make all the changes stick in your life. And you're afraid that something, you would have left behind in the haste to leave the retreat. And it has indeed been like a retreat, because I think it's been 9 months since I didn't even step out of my gate. And so it seems like while it was an enforced period of recluse living, it turned into something very precious. And but when I was reflecting more on what is the change really that I want to take, what is the change that will stay with me, it occurred to me that the one change that will stay with me perhaps for the rest of my life is that I have let go of the craving to change. It seemed to me that I had such a craving to change. Every year, this need to turn over a new leaf, to improve myself, to improve the world. I remember when the lockdown started, I so much wanted to be part of the helping people. The people, there was a refugee center that had opened right next to my building, my apartment complex, in a school that is next door. And I knew there were a lot of refugees there, and there was a great need to go and meet them and so on. And it was very frustrating to think that the only way I could really be useful to anyone is to stay safely out of everyone's hair, and just stay indoors, so that I won't turn myself into a nuisance. And I remember the frustration this caused me, and feeling suddenly like a very old woman who's completely useless and had nothing to contribute to society. And it felt really bad to be someone, I didn't like. It was my image of what pensioners are like. somebody who just stays at home and is just being safe for her own sake, kind of thing. And then it took me some time to get used to this idea that I won't, I can't change the world. There is, I'm completely impotent to change anyone else's life. And when I accepted that and embraced the old woman in me, the helpless old woman who has nothing to contribute to the world, something very strange happened. I found that there were little insignificant things that that all the people who were doing good, who were taking food from here to there, and were bustling around in their carts and all, they had forgotten was my Mali, my gardener, was a part-time person, of course, but I knew from having talked to him for several years that he came from a migratory community. And I knew that he stayed somewhere in the vicinity. I didn't know where his Juggi Jopadi was, but I knew that he stayed with a cluster of people who were migrant laborers like that. And I knew also that he didn't know how to read and write, and he didn't have a smartphone. And there were all these messages flying back and forth on WhatsApp. And I thought, let me call him and see if he needs any help. And I discovered that not only him, but his whole community in that Juggi cluster were basically starving because the police had cordoned off that area and nobody was telling them where the food was being served. So I found little things like that, which were very insignificant old woman things to do that would, skip the attention of the more productive people. And I started connecting this Raju's community with people who were giving dry rations and who were giving food. And then I used to take a walk in my locality, in my gated complex, and I discovered that the guards had lost their, half their livelihood because their households ran on the income of both the man and the woman who worked as a part-time help in other people's houses. But while people were busy distributing help to the people who were migrant labor, nobody was thinking of the people who were employed right in our complex, who had lost half their income and so were basically semi-starved. So it was easy to alert the WhatsApp group of our housing society that these people too need help. So there were little, for me, very non-dramatic things that didn't count as doing voluntary work, just reaching out to individuals that somehow became possible only because I accepted that I couldn't change the world. Similarly, I felt the same way about changing myself. There was a sense of, for instance, all my friends were across the river. I live on the east side of the river, and all my friends were south side of the river. So every time I stepped out of my house, it was basically to cross the bridge and go to the other side. My life was lived on the other side. I only came home to sleep in my house. But now, because I had no mobility, I was stuck in my own thing. And at first, it seemed very frightening to give up all sense of my identity, my projects, my sense of who I was. I had such a busy, interesting life outside of my home, and it was all gone in a flash. And I was nothing but this retired pensioner, useless living at home, doing nothing kind of thing. But because I was cut off from other people, because it was possible to accept that I couldn't change anything about my own life, I was no longer the interesting author. I was just an uninteresting old woman without a life. Uh, So then it became possible to connect to my neighbors. It became possible to be present, even if I was just going for a walk and somebody said hello, there was time to stop and talk and connect with these people. So it seemed to me that basically the biggest change in my life was a sense of giving up the need to change. And I felt transformation was only possible when I gave up all hope of changing either the world or myself. And I want to give one example of this, because when years ago I'd gone on a holiday, and one of the highlights of that holiday was we all got into a car or something and went several miles to view the sunrise. And it was something very, very spectacular, because you were getting up and you were going somewhere and you were sitting there and waiting for the sun to rise. And this impressed me so much that when I came home, I made a resolution and I wrote it down in my journal that every day for the next year, I'm going to get up and watch the sunrise. And of course, it never happened, because who's going to get up and watch the sunrise kind of thing? But now what happened quite organically was that our morning meditation are exactly at the time when the sun is rising beyond my window. So it just so happens that every day, without writing in my journal, without making a New Year's resolution about it, I do watch the sunrise every morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for the words of a wise, not so old woman, old mind, or but not. But anyway, wonderful. Thank you so much. Take us right into your life and share with that sense of meaning, which is for all of us, really. So another close friend who's in the core Sangha is Anita. Anita's also a communications and marketing expert, consultant. Met her many years ago working for she started the Women's Feature Service. So we thought that Anita could offer her take on the same question of what change you witnessed in your life in this year that you wish to continue.
Thank you, Shantam. I've written down what I'm going to say because I thought sharing my thoughts was a good opportunity to get my thoughts together. So, when the lockdown was announced in March this year, I had just begun to get on my feet, recovering from a leg surgery and having been in a wheelchair for almost 6 months. I was looking forward to walking in the parks and moving around doing things I had not able to do for a while. As almost everything came to a grinding halt in March, there was no time for complacency. Without the support staff, there was home management, meals, and precautions to be taken. Overnight, there was a deafening silence in the streets, no honking of horns, no voices of children playing in the park opposite our home and no going out. Our supplies were running low, but within a few weeks, our Community Residents Welfare Association organized a list of doctors, medical and provision stores that would deliver to our homes. My husband and I are both senior citizens and in the high risk category. We stayed home with one full-time staff person who lived on our second floor with his wife and 2 children. We shut the rooms we didn't use on a regular basis and did minimal cleaning and maintenance. I took over the care of the garden and the plants. I still couldn't move around very well, but slowly over the months I became more mobile. Like others all over the world, I celebrated the clean air, the blue skies, the peace and quiet. I enjoyed the singing of the birds, but at the same time, I was mindful of the enormous suffering and hardship for thousands. I kept them in my heart and sent them healing and love. I was very grateful to my mindfulness practice that kept me calm and healthy. 9 months into the lockdown, which has eased up just a little bit, I am grateful that I can enjoy some movement and have accepted what is now the new normal. What are these changes I have witnessed it in myself, and what are the ones I would like to continue? These are renewed awareness, patience and acceptance, very much like Sheila, compassion and wealth sharing, and solitude and gratitude. Renewed awareness, let me tell you, I became more aware of what I could live without and the often meaninglessness preoccupations I indulged in. My senses were sharpened due to the forced interaction with my environment, very much like Sheila, in a new and positive way. I began to appreciate what I had in and around my home, the household support staff, the communication networks like Zoom, and the importance of calm when life became terribly unpredictable, with little sense of what was happening and what the future would be. Patience and acceptance. Being a generally impatient person, I accepted the fact that I cannot get what I want and need when I want and need it. I had to revisit my expectations and practice patience and prioritize what I really wanted. For example, when house repairs needed to be done and workers were not available, I decided to forget about it. When I couldn't get the kind of food I like to eat, I decided to eat what was available to me. I needed to get an x-ray for my healing leg, but the hospitals and clinics were shut. I decided to let nature take its course and told myself that I had to wait. When the situation opened, I managed to get an x-ray and see the doctor in the hospital, saw the doctor in his home as opposed to the hospital so that I wouldn't be exposed to others. As I was recovering from surgery, it was imperative that I work out with a trained professional. I've had a trainer for the last 8 years. We moved into online training very quickly, and I realized how simple this was. The trainer didn't have to travel almost 60 minutes one way to be physically present in my home. He saved gas for his motorcycle and didn't have to negotiate traffic or deal with pollution. I realized how much I moved around unnecessarily just because I had a car or I could move around. On compassion and sharing of wealth. During the lockdown, a lot of people, especially the working class and self-employed, were disenfranchised and lost livelihoods, as Sheila just told you. It was heart-wrenching to see the suffering. Being relatively privileged, my family and I reached out to those in need. Starting at home, we continued to pay our staff full wages during this time and assist them in any way that we could. We gave the local Gurdwara that was serving 2 meals in the first several months of the lockdown. I answered calls for help from friends on WhatsApp and contributed in other ways. I also realized that the lockdown was hardest on older people that lived alone. So I made it a point to call them and be available to them. In my therapy practice, I went online for the first time, seeing clients on WhatsApp. Unfortunately, I had to turn away new clients who wanted a face-to-face session. A few months into the lockdown, I reorganized my home so I could see them face-to-face in a well-ventilated room, taking as much precaution as I could. I felt that their need for help was greater than mine for precaution. And finally, solitude and gratitude. Recovering from a leg injury in 2008, I have come closer to solitude. I'm fortunate that I like to spend time with and by myself. My love for writing, painting, gardening, and baking, all solitary activities, means that I spend a fair amount of time on my own. But I'm also privileged to share a home with my husband, whose company I enjoy. Over the lockdown period, we have become closer, so we spend more time together. I'm very grateful that I have a roof over my head, a beautiful home with spaces I can retreat to and enjoy, and staff that keep me in comfort and provide a quality of life I cherish. All this I would like to take over to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita, for sharing your experience in your teaching. I think it's a question for all of us to reflect on. And as both Anita and Sheila have shared, it's actually like a transitioning because this period of solitude or enforced solitude has taught us to be more comfortable where we are, with whom we are, and with whom we are with. Whether in the case of Anita, it's a husband. And I think these are special times, actually, in many, many ways. For those of us who have a roof over our head and food in our stomach, with the ability like this. And I think that's how I've tried to take it, as more as an opportunity. And one of the things I've found is that this Sangha, this Ahimsa Sangha in India has really strengthened. And it's through Zoom and through this everyday practice. And I think that's something which I feel must continue. It's earlier we would practice on our own, but now it's just, and it started with Rita, actually Rita, who left us in the middle of the pandemic. She died, and the day we heard that she was ill was the 23rd of July, and from that day we started a morning practice, and that's how Sheila managed to see a sunrise every day, and we saw this collective flower emerge through this period. But I think also just for me, and I mean, this is my first trip out. I've come to Delhi from Dehradun, and in Dehradun, sitting in the garden, just looking, being aware of the birds and the flowers and the seasons around has made me appreciate nature so much more in that locality, or that locale where I've been living. And it's amazing. I mean, Dehradun is a real haven for birds. And so I've noticed birds I've never seen in my life before. And I love traveling. I'm a traveler by nature. My livelihood is based on traveling. You know, I organize these pilgrimages, so I'm always traveling. But it was interesting how this time I've traveled so much just sitting in one place, connecting with friends who've been on the journeys we've done over the last 30 years, hearing their stories, and how I haven't really felt the need. It's a bit like Sheila's case of not needing to go to the south side or across the river, as it were. I really haven't felt the need to go anywhere. And maybe it's because I'm 60 plus and I've come to a certain stage in my life. I can see how different it is for my daughter who's 18, 19, who's these lives passing by. But I think what I'd like to take through is really the sense that we have to find the refuge in ourselves. And I think that's been important. I mean, I've always known that, but I think it's been strengthened in that sense of, and to know that the practice of mindfulness and those simple and yet deep practices of just being aware of the breath, being aware of our steps, being aware of how we eat, being aware of how we speak. I think all that has allowed us to cultivate a sense of who we are, to understand who I am. And as we did in the meditation in the beginning, those looking at our internal mental health, the poisons that we all carry, and how do we handle those? How do we not, we've all had some difficulty, some close friend who's either passed away or suffered, or family members. But all these, as the Buddha said, don't put a second arrow into whatever is arising. The story was that the Buddha asked somebody, if you have an arrow hitting in one place, it'll hurt. When a second arrow hits in the same place, how much will it hurt? It's not just double, it'll be manifold time. So whatever experience we get, whether of aloneness or whether it's of whatever the circumstance makes us suffer, don't put a second arrow of fear and why me and those sort of anger. That's the second arrow. So I think acceptance is a huge part of what's been my lesson this time. And I feel that that's will continue into this, into the next year. And I trust that the Sangha will, the community of friends who've come even on Zoom even now, will continue to build on this and to find refuge even in very, very far off places. So it's now coming to our closing of this hour. And I feel that this importance of Sangha is important. I also realized that when we don't only practice for ourselves, we practice for others. I've seen this in Plum Village over the years. When you walk into a place like that, you realize that everyone's doing walking meditation and walking for you. And you immediately start doing walking meditation. And so one of the big aspirations of this year has also been to set up the Plum Village in India, the Jamun village. And I think that is a change or continuation into the next year, which I see as quite a key element. So I'm going to close now. We didn't do any practice like eating or walking today, partly because it is what it is. But we'll end with a song, and I think songs are always a great practice. And when I started practicing, got interested in spirituality. I started doing chanting, and that's how it opened my heart. This spiritual practice, the realm of love. I think these songs are beautiful. And we'll end with that, and Three Sounds of the Bell at the end. But before that, I'd like to suggest that some of us friends who are on Zoom, we were from the Dehradun Sangha and from the Jamun and Bargad Sangha, and also maybe the core community. Please do stay on in the next half hour so we can have a little interaction. This is normally the time when a few of us meet after the main session, which is going on YouTube, etc. So see if that question means much to you and how you can reflect on it, and also look at the poisons and what you might find, see how you're living your life, where these poisons are watered. Just transitioning, knowing that, as I said in the beginning, the change of the year is not time just, but it's also action. And we continue whatever is happening now is to live into the next year. And it's how aware we are that makes the difference, how mindful we are. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll invite three times. We'll invite the Amiga choir. Share the end. No coming, no going. Of course, that's you know, yeah, that does it in itself.
No coming, no going, no after, no before.
I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free.
Because I am in you and you are in me.
Because I am in you and you are in me.
No coming, no going, no after, no before.
I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free.
Because I am in you and you are in me.
Because I am in you and you are in me.
Na ana, na jana, na atit, na bhavishya.
पास में तुमको ले लूं, आजाद तुमको कर दूं.
क्योंकि मुझ में तुम हो और तुम में मैं हूँ.
क्योंकि मुझ में तुम हो और तुम में मैं हूँ.
So thank you, dear friends. Enjoy the full moon in a few days and then the new year. And as the song says, you know, there's no coming and no going. Yeah, inter are, and this date inter are, inter is with everything else. So this is a great teaching, I think, the interbeing nature of everything through the COVID pandemic, and also the great uncertainty of everything, and how to look at these great teachings of the Buddha, which he discovered under the Bodhi tree, into our lives and into a reality, as not just as words or ideas, but actually as reality. So thank you, Sheila ji. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Amiga. And thank you, everyone, for being with us. And just the friends I mentioned, the Barga Jamun and Dehradun Sangha and core committee, please do stay on. Thank you.
Are we staying on?
Yes, Sheila.
Okay.
So, Shalini, you put the YouTube thing off, have you?